John Kenwright is a Community Activation Coordinator at Parcs, Victoria in Australia. In his role, he has been implementing a number of projects in Victoria's park to improve general accessibility inclusion for visitors with disabilities. Due to his work, Park Victoria was recipient of the 2011 Australian National Disability Awards, Health and Wellbeing. Prior to joining Parks Victoria over 4 years ago, John worked in the community sector developing and managing community programs that promote inclusion for people with disabilities. In more recent years, in his role with Parks Victoria, John has been active in promoting Victoria's national parks and accessible tourism destination. John?
Thank you. Hi everyone. Can anybody hear me here?
Oh, we don't hear you.
This one might be better. Hello, that's better? It's great to be here and bonjour. My presentation will be on our accessibility equipment program that we operate in Parks, and also I'll be talking briefly about our park access information framework that we have developed for visitors with disabilities who come to our parks. But before I actually go into that, I'll just give you a brief overview of Parks Victoria for those of you who don't know much about our organisation. Parks Victoria manages a range of parks in the state of Victoria. The state of Victoria is one of our smallest states. It's an area roughly the equivalent to the United Kingdom in area, and we have around 6,000 people living there out of a total population of Australia of about 23.5 million. The parks we manage are very diverse. We manage around 48 national parks, 26 state parks, 3 wilderness parks, 8 marine parks, a number of local metropolitan parks around Melbourne, and many other reserves. And these are all very diverse. And you can see our parks marked in green on the maps, and the blue areas around the coastal areas are our marine parks. One of our most popular parks that attracts a lot of overseas visitors is our Port Campbell National Park, where you can see the 12 Apostles. Some of you may have visited this site if you've ever come to Australia. A lot of our park visitors come to experience different components of our parks. As I said, they're very diverse, and a lot of them have beautiful waterfalls and other beautiful natural scenery. Marine parks are also very popular for visitors coming to our state, where they can explore the various old shipwrecks and marine life in these marine sanctuaries. As part of our responsibilities, we also manage a number of recorded Aboriginal sites across the state of Victoria, which is around 11,000. And we also manage a number of historical sites such as lighthouses, old gold mines, old homesteads, and other historical buildings in parks. Obviously, a lot of our visitors come for nature-based experiences. We can see the wildlife and then connect with them if possible, both for our land parks and also for our marine parks. The size of our accessible tourism market, like with similar countries, almost 1 in 5 Australians has a disability according to our national census. And according to the figures that we have, even though we need an update on these, people with disabilities spend about $8 billion a year on Australian tourism, and accounting for 11% of our total tourism expenditure. And around 88% of people with disability take a holiday each year. So it's a significant group just for visitors living in Australia coming to our parks, not to mention overseas visitors. The accessibility of our parks varies considerably. We have some really good accessible visitor sites for people with mobility limitations and with sensory disabilities and other requirements. But we also have a lot of parks that have very poor accessibility, particularly some of our remote parks. As part of the process, we're slowly upgrading those facilities when funding becomes available, but we have several thousand visitor sites and government funding is not as high as we hoped to maintain or replace those to the principles of universal access. In recent years, what we've done is engaged with the disability community in Victoria, trying to get understanding of what are the barriers that they've been experiencing visiting our national parks, and also what we can do as a park service to improve their park experience. And we found that very interesting because a lot of barriers were identified to park access to our parks that we weren't always aware of. The obvious one was accessible park facilities, and I think most people would be aware that it's a very important one. But one of the key ones has spoken about in other presentations was access to good information. A lot of people with disabilities who we spoke to, they wanted a lot more information about park visitor sites. They wanted to know a lot more information about whether it was an accessible toilet or not. They wanted to know what the parking was like. They wanted to know what the continuous path of access from the car park to the picnic areas. They wanted dimensions of the toilet doors, a whole range of information. So I'll talk later about how we've actually responded to that. We also discovered that a lot of the barriers identified to our parks vary considerably according to the person's disability and the level of disability. So the barrier issues identified by people with mobility limitations in many cases were quite different than those identified by people who are blind or vision impaired or those people who were deaf. One of the key ones that they identified that they would like our park service to provide was equipment to enable them to get out and experience parks like everybody else. That was a really strong theme that visitors with disabilities said, we want the same experiences in your parks like everybody else. And part of that, they conveyed to us that they'd like to have accessibility equipment available that they could actually use to explore a lot of the spectacular park trails that we have in many of our parks. So as part of that, we did a lot of work with the disability community groups, engaging with them of type of all-terrain equipment that they would like and other accessibility equipment that they would like to be provided by Parks. And one of those was beach wheelchairs. This is an Australian design where a lot of people with mobility limitations weren't able to access a lot of our beautiful beaches in our coastal parks. And so in response to that, we acquired a number of these chairs after doing a number of trials and actually made them available in our coastal parks for visitors to borrow for free. As you can see here, this is one of our park visitors, Simon, who was a keen surfer until he broke his neck in an accident, and it was the first time that he could come down and watch his son boogie board on the beach in one of our coastal parks. So that was a very special moment for him and for his son. The other chair that we provide is the French design Hippocamp, which many of you probably have seen before. This one we've found that it was quite popular for people with disabilities who want to access some of the trails that are a bit more rugged than a conventional wheelchair could go, and also had the capability of going in water, which a lot of people could say that they wanted. As you can see here, these chairs have been very popular for families with children with disabilities, where the child could come down with mum and dad and explore the beach, and also have water play like other children. So these chairs have been quite versatile in being able to go on some of our rugged trails to the beach, but also being able to be used on the sand and also in the water. So we have a number of these in our coastal parks. The trail rider is the other one, which some of you probably have seen. Also, some presentations have already talked about these, and this is a great Canadian design. And we have these in 8 of our parks, and these can be borrowed for a day or for a week, depending on what the visitor wants, and they can take them to other parks to explore other park trails. And this is one chair that we discovered that makes it possible for a lot of visitors who really want to get out into some rugged areas of our parks, the equipment that they need to do so, due to the unique design of only having one wheel. We've recently acquired one of these chairs for one of our iconic walks called the Great Ocean Walk. I don't know if anybody in the room has gone on that walk. It's one that we advertise a lot overseas, which is a 100-kilometre trail that follows the coastline. and with the provision of a trail rider chair at the Visitor Information Centre close to where the trail starts, people with disabilities can actually borrow that chair and explore sections of that trail. What we found with the trail rider chairs, although they enable people to get out on some really rugged areas of our parks, some park visitors with disabilities didn't always have enough fit friends, family members or carers to take them out, and so weren't able to borrow them. So what we've set up is a volunteer Sherpa program, is what we call it, and that is training up volunteers from the local community who are trained to actually operate the trail rider chairs and can take visitors out on park trails. So park visitors can actually book the chairs in advance from our national park and can also book the Sherpa volunteers to take them out, and it's a free service. So we're piloting this in our Grampians National Park at the moment, and it's been going for about 4 months, and if successful, we hope to get some funding to roll it out across many of our national parks. The other, as you can see here, there's some visitors using it where they've got some family, friends, but also some of our volunteers also helping them. The Sherpa volunteers are also trained in providing information about the park, so it's a bit like a park guide, so it's not just actually assisting with the pulling and pushing of the chair. Due to some of the trails being quite steep in our parks and quite long and can be quite exhausting for people pulling and pushing the chair, we've just recently developed a motorised prototype with electric motor, and we've been trialling that in the last couple of months, and we'll be making this available in November in our Buchan Caves Reserve. And that makes it a lot easier where you only need 2 chair operators to go up steep trails, and it makes it a lot easier for those people pulling, pushing, and it makes on-tracks more possible to access. The other equipment we provide in our parks, which was one of the needs, was getting better access to our caves that we manage in our parks. One of our very popular sites is our Buchan Caves Reserve, where we have 2 spectacular caves, and people, visitors with in wheelchairs or mobility limitations haven't been able to access those caves due to the rugged access to them, very narrow tunnels with lots of stairs. So we engaged with a number of groups to try and find out what equipment was available in the market to enable access for children and light adults, and we identified a product on the market called an electric stair climber. As you can see, one of the visitors strapping in her son in the stair climber, and one of our park staff also assisting with the operation chair. And that chair makes it possible for visitors to get down very steep descents with a minimum of effort. And for the first time since these caves have been open for the last, must be at least 80 years, people with disabilities can now get down to sections of Fairy Cave and experience the wonders of the cave like everybody else. And this is very important, obviously, for every visitor, and particularly makes it possible for those school groups where they have a number of students in wheelchairs, where they can share the experience with their other school pupils. As you can see here with the family, this family, the father is a local chap who loves caving. He's done it all his life, and it gave him a lot of enjoyment to be able to take his son down who has cerebral palsy, to be able to experience the caves that he took for granted when he was a kid, that he used to explore. So there's a human story behind all of these. Accommodation was another one that park visitors have conveyed, that they want not only accessible accommodation, but they also want equipment in that accommodation to make their stay possible. And this is particularly when we did consultations with carer groups, that they certainly highlighted the need for obviously accessible bathrooms and accessible entrances, etc., that we all know was important, but also the need for equipment. Because in many cases families are conveyed and individuals, the cars are already loaded up with luggage and other gear. They don't have room to bring a personal hoist and other equipment that they need to have their stay in the park. So in response to that, we now provide electric high-low beds with various adjustments for people who have chest infections and whatever, breathing problems. As you can see here in the picture, personal hoists that visitors can borrow, and we also have portable shower commode chairs and other bathroom equipment that's available for free for visitors who stay in our park. How we're promoting the equipment is going for a number of different formats. We discovered that it's very important for promoting this equipment, not only for visitors with disabilities, but also to carer groups, because we've discovered that for those visitors with disabilities that don't have the ability to read the information or make choices on their own, that carers often make the choices on their behalf. It's important that we actually target them as well, because if there's a husband and wife and the partner is caring for their wife or husband, they want to be convinced that it's going to be accessible as well for their needs as a carer. So in the promotion, we've been doing a lot of that in that area, as well as many other sections. The other way we're promoting it is actually making our equipment available for community events in parks, which really raising the profile. An example of one of these is the Oxfam Trail Walker event that operates in Melbourne. I understand Canada also runs this event, which is a 100-kilometre fun run walk in 2 days, 48 hours. And we had a Parks Victoria team with one of our trail riders, and one of the team members, Bruce, who has quadriplegia, completed the whole event as part of the team, and it was the first time internationally that a person in a wheelchair has actually completed a 100-kilometre event. It was a hell of a challenge for him and the rest of the team, but it really raised public awareness. This equipment means you can do all sorts of things in parks. Getting back to the park access information that people were requiring, we've actually engaged Travelability to actually assess a number of our most popular parks around Melbourne to actually compile access information for visitors with disabilities to refer to. And we've now built on that further, where we have 38 of our most visited parks in and around Melbourne, and our iconic national parks across Victoria have very detailed park access information about the visitor sites, such as the boardwalks, the toilets, the picnic areas, the parking, with photographs and very detailed information. What we're finding is the challenge is that it's very resource intensive actually compiling that information for every park and also keeping it up to date. And we've been doing pilots with various disability groups of actually them compiling the information and feeding it into our website for other visitors to refer to. So our plan is to constantly build on that. For our initial trials with representatives from the blind and vision impaired community and representatives from the people with physical disabilities, we've found a few glitches in our website to make it user friendly, and we're still working on that, but our plan is to actually have a system where visitors can actually share their access information experiences on our website that further builds on the access information that we're providing. 1 minute. Great. Website and finding information is a real key one for people with disabilities and for the general broader population as well. And we have an accessibility inclusion web page as a starter for people who are not familiar with our parks, but we also have accessibility information integrated into each park page as well. We're constantly trying to improve on the website of making it easier for people to navigate and find the information they want, but we certainly promote this as a page to start with to find out where our all-terrain wheelchairs are located and which parks, where accessible accommodation and equipment is available, and a lot of our other programs. So I might just leave it there.
Hi, good morning. I saw one of the wheelchairs that is to go down at the cave. It is useful to go up to?
That's correct, yeah. So it has a special sensor on it that basically walks up and down the stairs, so it means that you don't have to do any lifting of the chair. And so it automatically, the way it's a bit hard to describe how it works, but a set of wheels come out to actually slowly lower the person down each step, and you can do it in reverse where it slowly lifts the person up each step with the guides of somebody operating the chair at the back. So what it really means that a lot of staircases that people can get down using this equipment without somebody potentially injuring themselves who may be operating the chair. They carry the one with, I think it's an Austrian design. It's very great technology with the sensors. We get sensors when you get to the edge of the step before the wheels come out and actually take the person down to the next level. It takes people up to about 120 kilograms. We've found through the initial trials that the tunnels are very confined and narrow, and so it's a bit hard to take very heavy passengers down, and so at the moment we're limiting the passengers to 60 kilograms until our park guides get better at it, and we're hoping to increase the weight capacity. Yeah.
Was it developed in Australia?
No, it's a European design. My understanding it was developed in Austria, so a very good engineering design.
Thank you for the presentation. It was very, very interesting. Could you tell me if you have any accessibility aids for the marine parks, specifically for people with disabilities who do scuba diving?
Unfortunately, we don't at the moment, and it's something that's on our list to actually look at to see how we can actually improve the marine experience for people who are diving with disabilities. There's a number of diving clubs that have people with disabilities in them, which we work with, but we don't provide any aids directly to them. Yep. One of the key ones we're working on at the moment is having launching areas in our marine parks that are a lot more accessible for people using boats and people who are canoeing and diving, etc.
Thank you for the presentation. I would like to know if you adapted the stairs for the chair, or if you kept the original stairs for the chair.
The stairs, the tunnel to the cave were the original stairs and entrance, and so we didn't have to. There was very minor alterations that we needed to do to the staircase for the equipment to operate to get down in the caves. Is that what you're asking? We had to look at a lot of things because the tunnel was very narrow. Many wheelchairs could not get through. We had, I think it was something like about 2 feet wide in some sections, and so the narrowness was one of the key issues, to be able to get visitors down there safely, and also having equipment that was narrow enough to fit through some of the narrow sections.
I come from Norway. In Norway, we have activity centers for disabled people who can have activity in wintertime and summertime. If you've been there, maybe the first time, the next time will maybe be 2 or 3 years. And my question is, maybe you have answered it, but I try. Must you apply to come to this center in the park? And how often can you come there? And at least who have the financial answer? And who pay for it? I try that.
I really only can speak from Parks Victoria's perspective, but our policy in Parks is that all visitors to our parks have equal access to our parks, and in principle all our parks are free for visitors, so there's no entry fee, and for all the equipment that we provide, that's for free, because if some visitors need access to our trails and it requires special equipment, that should be free as part of the service. So I'm not sure if that's answering your question, but our aim is to ensure that it's affordable going to parks to access those experiences, and also to actually encourage health and well-being. Our logo is Healthy Parks, Healthy People, and we're doing a lot of work like Parks Alberta, with community groups of actually running programs in parks that promote the health and well-being of people in the area of mental health, in the areas for people who are blind, vision impaired, people who are older adults who are socially isolated and need to be rejuvenated by getting in the green space, etc. So yeah, it is a cost by service providers, but one of the key things that a lot of park services are slowly cotton onto is that health prevention funding is a growing source of revenue, and a lot of these projects that are being implemented in parks can be relatively easily converted to tourism programs. And the equipment I spoke about today was funded by health prevention funding to get people physically active, people with disabilities, getting them physically active outside in green space. We're currently doing a program at the moment with the blind vision impaired community where we're supporting them and running bush walks in parks and getting them active, and it's a special program model that we developed with them, and we're currently supporting them to further develop that program to develop it as a product for overseas visitors that they can access. So even though there's been some costs in setting it up from a health prevention point of view, hopefully in 12 months' time, it'll be a product for tourism where people get a lot of benefit.
I am a tour operator in Peru. I am looking the way how to buy or to get a trail rider. Can you let me know maybe the best way of how you got them?
They're made here in Canada, in Vancouver, and obviously my colleagues from Parks Alberta probably know more about it, but they are manufactured there, and we import them to Australia from Canada. So if you speak to Christian, he can. But we found that they are very affordable and compared to other chairs. Obviously, lots of recreation or terrain chairs are expensive for people to purchase themselves or for organisations to use, but we've certainly been very impressed with them regarding their strength and ease to maintain and suit a lot of different visibility requirements, because there's lots of adjustments on them for different abilities and sizes of visitors, and there's not many chairs that have those features, so yeah, we're very impressed with them.
I've got a question. It's Bill Forrester from Travelability. It's a question for virtually everybody on the panel, and I'm going to rope the girl from Tourism Alberta into the same question. We've got some really good worldwide academic research on health and well-being. We've got some really good academic research on tourism patterns for people with disabilities. We've got innovation coming out in pockets. We've got new equipment, and we know about the aspirations. When, I guess, I'm just going to start with the academic thing, when is the academic going to transcend into tourism courses, into finance courses, and then transcend across into something that ought to be marketed? Because if you look at Alberta, as we said in earlier sessions this week, you've got the Icefield Parkway. We've already seen there are probably a dozen top inclusive attractions. You've now got the outdoors available, but nobody is coordinating that into a package to market. I'd like some comments from both the academic world of how you translate that into your academic courses, from Tourism Alberta on how you then get hold of that, and then how you meld the whole lot together.
One of the things we've identified is that, yeah, as a government agency, we need to facilitate people coming to the parks, but we're not about guiding them through the parks or, like you said, creating that package. So we're working with companies like Chris Colonna, who are working with us to sort of build these packages safely, market them. Sort of we support them, and we put the golden stamp on it. But you could then get an inquiry from an individual about accessing the park, going on a guided tour, as would an able-bodied person. There's mountain guides for everybody. You climb Everest, you get a guide. So it would be directing people towards various organizations that are then capable of taking them on these trips and, you know, are familiar with all the research, all the studies, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think in terms of crossing our sectors, you know, we're beginning to do this. You're hearing about this with health and with Alberta Parks as sort of those two sectors co-financing these studies. I've just been talking with our colleagues from Chris Kelowna about some of my academic friends that are working in phys ed and outdoor leadership and tourism. So I think, you know, we're beginning to make these nudgings, right? It's, I think I agree. It's that boundary, that park boundary, that picture that we saw at the beginning, that we need to kind of blur those boundaries a little bit. We need to blur, you know, who's doing what and this sort of disciplinary structure that we have. I think it's beginning. We need to see more of this. We need Dawn to be an associate professor or an adjunct professor in nursing, and I need to work more with Parks. You know, these are the kind of overlaps that we're just nudging towards. It's what needs to happen. We need to include industry in that, as you say. So, thanks.
I think just to, it's Bill, is your name, Bill? Just to add to that comment, I think with all the amazing ideas and innovations that we've seen happening and the stories we've heard about what's going on. TED Talks, I don't know if any of these presentations have been given on TED Talks, but if they have been, I think we'd all love to know that they're available. And if they haven't, I'd love to see some of them out there, because I think that would be a great way to share the information. For people who aren't familiar with that, TED Talks, I think it's Technology, Education, and Design. Is that right? And it's available online. So just a comment.
Sorry. That's great. No, yes.
Look, I think that's a great idea. Just one matter I forgot to mention when I was presenting is that Parks Victoria developed a manual for its park rangers on compiling park access information for visitors with disabilities and other requirements. I've got a copy of it here, and if you're interested in looking at it, it's a valuable resource for our park rangers in compiling park access information for visitors who are wanting to know how accessible the sites are so they can plan their trip. So I just thought I'd mention that, so thank you.
I just wanted to go back to respond to Bill's question on the tourism side. As I mentioned, I work for the Alberta government in the tourism side of formerly Tourism, Parks and Recreation. They've now split us. We don't have it currently as accessibility as a specific project that we're going after. It's something that I want to change. It's something that I've been working on for a while. But we know that there are these innovative experiences and tour operators out there. There are missing links, as I've had discussions with other Albertans who are here. How do we overcome that before we're market ready? Before we can put it out there that you can come and have these experiences, we want to make sure that all of the pieces to the puzzle are there so that we're not missing the mark or setting expectations that are not there. But something that's unique about Alberta, or something that I love about Alberta, is how innovative we are. So we see a problem, we try and fix it, hence the apparatus you see up front there. So we welcome that from tour operators. We know we have other transportation providers here who saw that need, like I mentioned in my presentation yesterday, and filled that gap. So it's just a matter of finding out where they are. One thing I'm taking back from this conference is we're developing a report based on what we've heard here, what the best practices are, and sending it up to our minister so that she can hear what's going on and what we can do moving forward to make Alberta more accessible.
Hi, it's again me, Antje. Today I'm actually here for the European Travel Commission, but also I work for the German National Tourist Board. So just to quickly also get back to your question, I think that a number of countries are maybe already a step ahead. So basically in Germany, our government brought everyone together on a table, and we had everyone included from the different states. We had tour operators, we had different associations from different, needs that people have. And out of that, they actually developed guidelines and what we need to do in order to make tourism better for everyone. And I actually think Germany is a really, really good example for, not being there, of course, like maybe out of 10 steps we have reached 3, but actually we were able to bring everyone already together on a table, but that was initiated by the government. And I always think it needs to be, you know, one person head, like on the very, very top level that needs to bring everyone together, unfortunately.